This is Elli. I'm Elli Wohlgelernter. We're here to interview Abe Mizrahi on February 14th, 2024, about his life and times. All right. Let's start. Let's start actually with your parents. Where look at me. Where mom and dad were from.
Okay. My father was born and raised in Palestine. He traces his ancestry almost seven generations before. Most likely, a lot of his family came from Iraq, and much of his family stayed in Iraq, but for whatever reason, we don't know. His ancestors, some generation back, they came and lived in Palestine, and they lived in Yerushalayim and Hebron. Sometime in Yerushalayim and sometimes in Hebron, depending where they got a job. My mother was born and raised in Morocco, and she came to Palestine. She doesn't really know exactly what year it was, perhaps 1816, 1818, I'm not sure. She does not sure. She came with her parents. Her father was a rabbi. She was already married and had a child. And they came to Palestine. Unfortunately, her parents died of the influenza infection, so I never had an opportunity to meet them. My grandparents from my father's side also died of the influenza, so for me, I never had the opportunity to spend any time with grandparents.
What year was your father born?
That's the point. They have no idea when they were born.
Okay.
I asked my mother once, I said, Ima, when were you born? She said, I was born during the King Hassan II. I said, well, King Hassan II was king for a number of years. No, I want to know the day. He said, what's so important about the day? What's so important about the day? And until I came to America, I've never realized that people actually celebrated birthday. My birth itself is not known precisely, and I will come to that in a moment. But anyway, the husband that she had coming from America was a mentally disturbed individual, and they had to divorce, and he was admitted to an institution in Israel, in Yerushalayim, and so then she married my father. So I have a half brother and a half sister, both from my mother's side, but not from my father's side. I am the youngest of 4 brothers and 1 sister. And I'm told that I was born at Hebron, delivered by an Arab
midwife.
Midwife.
The Hebrew word. Yeah. And my parents didn't know that you had to report the birth. So they never really realized that I had to be reported. So essentially, I really don't know my date, my date. But am I jumping on something else now? Okay. My date on my passport and everything else is April 16, 1929. My father was at the time working in Hebron. So I was born in Hebron by an Arab lady, and my birth was not reported. My father had very good relationships with the Arab community, and one day I'm told that a friend of his told him, said, don't ask any question, just take your family, put them on the bus, go to Yerushalayim, don't take anything with you. Leave everything there and go. But don't ask why and don't tell anybody. Just do it. So my father trusted them, and he did. So he put us on a bus with all my brothers and my mother and he, and we came to Yerushalayim to family that he had, and we stayed there for a while. That night there was a huge massacre in Hebron. So in a sense, an Arab friend of my father saved our life. And I always remember that to this day. So I have no ill feeling for a person who is an Arab. Especially since I was also delivered by an Arab woman. So when they got to Yerushalayim, my father's family said, what happened with Avraham's birthday? He said, what about it? So did you report it? He said, no. He said, oh, we have to go to Misrad Abreut and report it. He said, but what day was he born? Well, what's not for it? I don't know what about him. So we have to give him a date. So they gave me April 16, 1929. Definitely it was April, and definitely it was 1929, but the date, I don't know. So that's how my birthday became to be April 16, 1921. Whether it's real or not, it's not really important either to me or to anybody else.
And based on that date, you knew your Parshat Shavua before your Bar Mitzvah.
I'm sorry,
and how did you know your Bar Mitzvah Parsha?
Yeah, well, that's the problem. My family never spoke Hebrew at home. My language at home was Arabic. And we stayed in Yerushalayim for very little time in the old city. And then my father moved us to West Jerusalem and lived in Machne Yehuda for a long time. My relationship with Yerushalayim is really Machne Yehuda. I asked my father then, how are we going to celebrate my Bar Mitzvah if we don't really know what the day is? He said, what's so important about the day? The Torah doesn't say it had to be that particular day. It says that year. It's the whole year. You can have Bar Mitzvah anytime you are 13 years old. So it doesn't really matter. So I asked my older brother, because he was the one who knew everything more than anybody else, including my father, God forbid. Hashem is laughing. But he said, yeah, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be the same day. And actually, very rarely, it's the same day. So I get to that a little bit later. But right now, my life in Machne Yehuda, we were extremely poor people. My father neither my father nor my mother ever attended a single day in school. My mother never spoke Hebrew. With all the years that she lived in her Israel, she never learned to speak Hebrew. And it's part of the fact that her father was a rabbi. And to me was very strange. How can a daughter of a rabbi not know Hebrew? She said, why can't you even read Hebrew? If you can, how can you pray if you don't know how to read Hebrew? He said, I was raised to be a good Jewish girl, then to be a good Jewish sister, then to be a good Jewish wife, then a good Jewish mother, and build a good Jewish home. That's all you need to know. but she knew every halakha about kashrut, every halakha about Shabbat, every halakha about Yom Tov. She knew every halakha that makes a Jew a Jew, but she couldn't read Hebrew. She couldn't even read. She couldn't read anything, actually. And my father eventually forced himself to read because he needed to understand what the prayers were about. So we were very poor. In the family, we lived in an apartment with 2 rooms, 1 room for my father and mother, 1 room for us. By then, my older brother was already married and away. The second brother was also married, and he lived in Petach Tikva. So my brother and I didn't even have beds. We slept on mattresses on the floor. And if anybody knows what Yerushalayim is during the winter, you know how cold and freezing it is. But that's the way I live. We didn't have water, running water. We didn't have electricity. And we didn't have any bathroom. We have outdoor privy. And everybody has the same way. I mean, we were not unusual. Everybody in my neighborhood were exactly the same. Everybody spoke Arabic, and in my immediate neighborhood, there were 4 synagogues. One was the Palestinians, but those were people who lived and born in Palestine, those who were born in Iraq, and those who were born in Persia. Everybody spoke Arabic except those who were born in Persia. They spoke Farsi. But practically nobody spoke Hebrew. Everybody, only the kids, my brothers and I spoke Hebrew, and my friends, whatever friends I had, we learned Hebrew. But with my parents, it was all Arabic. And my home essentially was not really a happy home. It's a very tranquil home. Tranquility. Very mild, no friction anywhere. I've never heard any harsh words between my parents or my parents with us. Never was any kind of friction or conflict in any way. Each person knew exactly what your role in the family is and never crossed the borders. You stayed that. My father never complained ever about anything that my mother prepared for food. And my mother never complained that she didn't have enough money to buy food or to do whatever it is. You never.
But she did not have enough money.
Yeah, but because we didn't have electricity and we didn't have, my mother had to go to the shuk every day to buy provisions for that particular day. We can't save it. So the poor woman, thank God, the shuk in Mahne Yehuda was just across the street from us, so she didn't have to go too far. The problem is that Mahne Yehuda at the time, the streets were not paved. They were all stone, and when it's rained, it was really dangerous to walk on those stones because you can slip, but she managed. Now, because we didn't have running water, when I was about 4 years old, or maybe 5, my role was to go to we have the air in a room, and with a pail of water, and pump. We have a pump, we pump water, bring it home, and if we need more, I'll have to go back and get more. And all the kids were waiting in line, waiting. Everybody had the same thing. There was no, when it comes to Shabbat, what are you going to do with Shabbat? So we had a heater that was, we called Primus. Primus was I don't know what the Hebrew word for it.
Primus. It's the Hebrew word.
Primus. Okay. So my mother had to be sure that the light, the heat is absolutely right, so that the food will not be dry or will not be too cold for Shabbat, because we kept Shomer Shabbat to the. My father was a heavy smoker. When it comes Friday afternoon, he will have one cigarette, then put it away, and never smoke until we had Havdalah in the synagogue, and he didn't wait. We had to come back at home and say the Havdalah again, so that my mother will hear the Havdalah, and then the first thing he will do, he will have a speaker. So I asked him, I said, Abba, if you can not smoke for Shabbat, or even if Yom Tov comes on Sunday, then you have 2 days that you don't have to smoke. Why don't you stop smoking? I said, I have very few pleasure in life, and that's one of them. So, okay, so I never questioned them.
So the only light that you had in the house was candlelight?
Only candle, well, it's not candlelight, it's
kerosene?
Kerosene. Mm-hmm. That's the word I was looking for.
Ah.
Yeah. Even reading, there was no light, no electricity, so we only had the light coming from a lamp, a kerosene lamp, and it was not too good for the eyes.
Yes.
But that's the way it is.
What was the address in Machane Yehuda?
There was no address in the first area. That's for 7 or 8 years, just Machane Yehuda. Then my father's situation was a little bit better, so we moved to another place within Machane Yehuda, but here we already had electricity. Not running water, but we had all the plumbing for them, but we had a big tank of water, and we have to fill it. So every few days, my father will go up and fill the tank, so we have water to use for bathroom or cooking and bathroom.
I just want to add, the clock tower shul, the shtibel on Yafo, that was already kayam, that was already standing.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
The clock shtibel shul on Rehov Yafo.
Yeah.
That was already standing, correct?
Yeah.
You remember that shul? I mean,
yeah.
And the time, the clock, the Zen was telling the time, the sundial.
Yeah. From age 6 or so, I would go to, my father was a religious guy, and he went to the synagogue every morning, and Mincha and Ma'ariv every day. 7 days a week, every day. That's what we had done. I would wake up very early in the morning, because Shachrit was very early in the morning in Yerushalayim, and then by age maybe 5 or 6, I would go with him, and I would just wonder beautiful how he put the tefillin on and all the prayers that go with the tefillin, and I just couldn't wait to do it myself. I really want to do it. And I just love to go to the synagogue with him and be part of the community, But there was really not very much community in terms. They talk about age, but we never there were no friends that would come for Shabbat dinner or anything like that. Shabbat dinner was for the family. Actually, Shabbat dinner and Shabbat, Yom Shabbat lunch was for the family. That's the only time the whole family ate together. Everybody had their own life and did all sorts of things.
And you had enough food to eat for Shabbat? You had enough food to eat on Shabbat?
Oh yeah, my mother, thank God, I have never been hungry in my life. And I don't even know what it means to be hungry. I really don't. From the age 9, I insisted that I want to tzum Yom Kippur. And my mother said, "You're 99 years old. What do you need to?" I said, I want to do it. She said, "Okay. But if you feel like you want to eat, it's okay." I never felt hungry. I never felt hungry. I really don't know what hunger means. I never been hungry in my life.
Okay.
So we always had things to eat. Portions were small, thank God, not large, but simple food. Like for breakfast, I had pusat lechem and some piece of cheese or halva or something. That's it. The other thing is that we, because we didn't have kirur in the first place where we were,
refrigerator.
We're not a refrigerator, so a farmer would come to our neighborhood with a milking cow, and he will be there, and you sit there with a pail and get the milk into the pail, and all the kids waiting with a book, and we'll come to him, and he will fill it up with milk. I will pay him, I don't know how many piastres, whatever it is, and we come back, and we have to do that every day, because we can't keep. When we moved to the other place, we didn't have a refrigerator, but we have an ice box. So we have ice, putting it, especially for Shabbat, because every day she just walked across the street and she was in the shoot, so there's no problem. But for Shabbat, we have to keep the milk and we have to make whatever it is that she was preparing, that in an ice box. In terms of education, at the time there were no mandatory schools. All the schools were private, so you have to pay tuition. In the Jewish school, in the Jewish population, we had the yeshivot, that's separate. Of course, we did not belong to that. We have Talmud Torah, and we have secular schools. My parents, because they really couldn't afford much, had chosen to treat my brother, older brother, Elli, which was, alav shalom, 2 years older than me, to go to a secular school, because he was very athletic, and athleticism was important for him, and Talmud Torah, there was no athletics, so they tried to accommodate him, so he went to a school called Tachikimoni. Tachikimoni was a secular school. For me, I was not athletic, and I didn't have anything special about it, so they wanted me to be more educated than just to be athletic, so they chose to send me to 2 schools. The first school was a Christian school they call Ratisbon, and that was from 8 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but from 3 o'clock in the afternoon to 6 o'clock in the evening, I went to Talmud Torah. That's the agreement my father said. But that lasted only 2 years, because my father couldn't pay tuition for me and 2 schools, and for my brother Elli at the Tachikimoni. So the question was, do I continue with Ratisbon or continue with Talmud Torah? My family decided Talmud Torah was more important, so I went to Ratisbon only for 2 years, and continued studies in the Talmud Torah.
Those schools were in the old city? They were in the old city? The
No,
schools?
all in Mahne Yehuda.
Okay.
All in my neighborhood. I would say that Mahne Yehuda was a self-imposed what's
City.
the word?
You can say a city, its own city, its own...
No, it's more important than that. It's a ghetto. It's a self-imposed ghetto. We, for some reason, because of our traditions of the people who lived there, had no relationship at all with anything outside that Mahne Yehuda. It never, to me, would never occur that people would go to a restaurant to eat. Why would you go to a restaurant to eat? You eat at home. I never knew that you can actually write music until I was about 13 or 14. How can you write music? You write words, but you write music? How can you write music? I had no idea. So my education was so limited, but it was very good education, Jewish education. But that Jewish education was really very superficial. It was never a discussion about values, Jewish values, or anything. Just memorize. I'll give you an example. I think it was the 5th grade. We just went through the Breshit just to know the people, Avraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, and the stories that go with it. At the 6th grade, we had the same stories, but now also what the Rashi said about it. So we come to the story of Cain and Abel, and of course Cain kills Abel, and we talk about it, and what Rashi explained that. Then the Torah says God punished Cain. And after that, it said, and Cain married and had children. So I raised my hand and I asked, where did Cain find this woman? If God created Adam and Eve had 3 children, all boys, they're all men. And the Torah doesn't say anything that they had a female. I said, where that female came from? The teacher was so angry at me. He said, you go to the principal's office. In my school, going to the principal's office was, oh my God, I mean, what did I do? It was something terrible. So I went to the principal's office, and the secretary says, Avraham, what are you doing here? He said, the teacher told me. The principal comes out. He said, what are you doing here? He said, the teacher. I said, come. Take me to his office. He said, what did you do? So I told him the story. He started laughing. He said, that's a very good question. He said, but nobody knows the answer to that. I said, so why is he angry at me? He said, you have to understand that there are some people who feel if you question anything that is in the Torah, it's like you don't believe it. I said, but it has nothing to do with believing or not. I just wanted to know where that woman came from. You have to understand that people are different people. This particular teacher is very, very strict, and he feels so, please go back to class and tell him that I sent you back. So I went back. So I knew that I'm not going to ask questions. So I had a problem. When I wanted to ask something, who do I ask? So I asked my father. I said, Abba, what the, he thinks a bit and said, you know, you really better ask your teacher. But now I can't ask my teacher. My father tells me I should ask my teacher. I said, I have to find the answers myself. And if I can't find the answer myself, then shame on me. I have to learn how to study and find out the answer for myself. And realize that I can't have the answer for everything. There are questions that I cannot be answered. So that's the kind of education that I was the least talented of my brothers. My brothers were far more talented than I am in many ways. The only thing that was different about me was that I asked questions. I was curious because I wanted to know. Why I was born that way, I don't know, but I always wanted to know things. So it really forced me to be able to think for myself and to find ways in which I can search to get an answer to questions that I didn't have to. So in many ways that was a blessing for me that in a way I really wanted to learn from my father, but I couldn't do that because he really didn't know. And I stopped asking him questions because I realized that I am embarrassing him. If I'm asking a question and he can't answer me, every time he tells me, you better ask your turn. So I stopped doing it. You should know that in my family there was a tremendous respect to parents. Even as an adult, when I come home, the first thing I do, I go to my father and kiss his hand. And then I go to my mother and kiss her hand. I never sat in a chair that was my father's chair. It was my father's chair. And it belonged to him and nobody else. Never even attempt to embarrass him by asking stupid questions or behavior in such a way that will embarrass him or the family. So in many ways it was a blessing, again, but that's why I say my family was not really a happy family. It was a tranquil family. There were no frictions, but there was no happiness, like there was no birthday parties, no this, nothing like that, no vacations. The only time that was a vacation was Lag BaOmer. We went to Shimon HaTzadik on a picnic, and hundreds of families were there. When I was 3 years old, that was my first haircut was Shimon HaTzadik. But that's the way life was. And Jewish tradition was Jewish tradition, and you cannot change that. You live the tradition, period. Kibud Avraham meant Kibud Avraham. It's not yes or no, not sometimes. It's Kibud Avraham, Kibud Avraham.
Wasn't that true for most of the families or all the families in
Almost all the families in my neighborhood were exactly the same. Exactly the same. And in a way, it limits you, but on the other hand, it really frees you also. It frees you because then when you build your own family, you hope to build it on the same basis so that your children will respect you and you will respect the children and their privacy. They never questioned my brother Elli, who was absolutely committed to athletics. He loved swimming, and there's only one swimming pool in all of Yerushalayim. And where was that? YMCA. YMCA just opposite King David. But YMCA, so he joined YMCA. But YMCA demanded, that was the rule, you get to the swimming pool without any clothes. Not even a bathing suit. So he invited me to come, and I said, no, this is not for me. For me, I'm not going to do that. That's not Jewish. You can't do that. He said, yeah, that's the way they, for whatever reason, that's what they felt. They felt that that's what they have to do. So I never went, and I never learned how to swim. Even I taught my daughter how to swim, but I didn't know how to swim myself. And she is a super swimmer.
Let me ask you a question. When you were starting with 7, 8, 9 years old, 10 years old, and you were asking your parents about Hebron, what did they tell you? First of all, what did they tell you what they had heard about the pogrom that took place in August of 29? What did they tell you?
That's the problem. They were never talking about their family at all. They never talk about what happened in the past. They never told me. The only thing that my father told me was his friend told me about what happened, that when his friend told him, take your family, put them on the bus and don't say anything to anybody. You know why he said that? He never wanted to talk about it?
Because he knew many of the people who were killed.
No, because he was told not to tell anybody else. So other people, other Jewish people, could have done the same thing if he told them that. Could have saved their life. So he always felt guilty that he listened to the Arab and never said anything to other people. Because he didn't know what was going to happen. But when he found out what happened, he felt guilty for the rest of his life that he had the opportunity to save other Jewish life, but he didn't do it. Years later, when I was able to talk to him about it, I said, Abba, you didn't know what was going to happen. He said, but I should have known. Why would he tell me to take the family and leave everything and don't take anything and don't tell anybody? It must have been something very bad happening because he was my friend. He told me that. But I have the obligation to tell other people too, other Jews, but I didn't do it. So explanation were really meaningless. They didn't mean anything.
What was your father's name?
Shlomo.
Shlomo Mizrahi.
Shlomo. Well, my father during the First World War was drafted into the Turkish army. And he didn't like the way the Turkish people treated him. He deserted. Jewish people really don't have, in our area, don't have family names. What they have is where you come from. So his name was Shlomo ben Rahamim Knani, from Canaan. He didn't put Palestine, he said Canaan. So they took Canaan as a family name. But he was afraid that the Turkish will flood, so he changed it to Mizrahi. Mizrahi was the most common name. That there are thousands of Mizrahi. They will never find them. If they look for Mizrahi, they never find them. So that's what his idea was. So our actual name, if I really stick to that. My name should be Avraham ben Shlomo Haknani, but the Mizrahi, so kept it Mizrahi.
The little he told you, did he say that he was shocked by what happened, that he couldn't have imagined, or he could have imagined, meaning he had a good relationship with the Arab neighbors in Hebron, but then the pogrom happened. How did he, not explain it, but how did he understand it?
He could not understand it. He said that most of the people that I associate with were decent people. Actually, on Yom Kippur, after Ne'ilah, Arab people came to our house with plates of fresh fruit. We reciprocated with them on Ramadan. My mother would make a call and tell them, be sure this is halal, which is the Arab kosher, and they knew that would be there. We reciprocate with them. So the kind of people that he knew associated with were decent people. He said, I can't understand the people that I know would never have done anything like that. Never. I said, maybe people came from other places. He said, that's the only thing that makes sense to me. He said, but I don't really know. But he really couldn't believe that the people that he was associated with and friendly with that would do that kind of thing, especially to children, because children are killed too. So that was, but the guilt that he felt never left him.
Did he ever go back to Hebron?
I'm sorry?
Did he ever go visit Hebron afterwards?
Never went back to Hebron, ever. I've never been to Hebron. I've never been to Hebron.
Why didn't you go as an adult?
I couldn't go to Hebron because that will more point out to the guilt of my father. Maybe in my mind was wrong, but I don't see any reason for me to have gone to Hebron, other than if I go to Hebron, and if my father would know that I went to Hebron, it will reinitiate all the guilt that he was feeling, give it more reality to it. Although after time, things get a little easier, but that was the problem.
When you're 7 years old,
Yeah.
it begins the pogroms of 1936,
Yeah.
37, 38, 39.
Yeah.
What do you remember?
That's one of the problems that I had at home, is we never had any political discussion ever.
But you knew what was hearing. You were hearing what was going on in the street.
Well, we knew that Arabs were killing Jews. We also knew that Jews were killing Arabs. We were much more concerned about what's going on in Europe. And even that we never talk about at home. At home we never knew about. Rumors were talking, people coming from Europe and saying, oh, terrible things are happening to Jews in Europe. But never was discussion about what happened. There was never discussion about Zionism. My parents never knew who Theodore Herzl was. They never knew what the Dreyfus trial was. I mean, they were not educated people. Whatever information they had was they got from other people, from talking to other people. It's not like getting a newspaper and reading it. They know, and any information that we got from the Sochnut was filtered, was not always 100% correct. because they had their own agenda, and they had to follow their agenda, and they had to be sure. For instance, we never knew what was happening in Auschwitz. Not until 1943, when Stephen Wise, the Rabbi Stephen Wise, gave a tremendous speech in Switzerland and told the whole world what was going on. And it forced the Yishuv to tell us what was going on. That was a specific, directly, they didn't want the Yishuv to know what was going on.
Because?
Why? Because if we have a lot of friction between the Jewish people. We have the Irgun, we have Lehi, and we have the Haganah. The Irgun and Lehi primarily were against the British. Haganah had to work with the British to try to. So Ben-Gurion was, in my opinion, Ben-Gurion was very concerned that if the Yishuv, especially the young people, knew what was going on in Europe, they would leave the Haganah and go to Irgun. Why are the British closing the door for the people who were able to leave Germany to come to Palestine, and they will not allow them? 1939 was a terrible year for the Yishuv in Israel. Terrible. Because they allowed only 100,000 people to come to Palestine, Jewish people. Arabs can come anytime they want, and as many as they want. But the Jewish people, no. Only 100,000. And millions of people were being killed in Europe. So that's where the anger was. And Ben-Gurion realized that if the young people become so angry at the British, they would leave the Haganah and go and join Irgun or the Lehi. And they were very careful not to do that. But Stephen Wise forced the Sechnut to tell us the truth, what was going on.
When you say the Sechnut telling us, how did that? What was the relationship?
The newspaper were all controlled by the Sechnut.
Hey, Vanti. Did you know about Kristallnacht?
I'm sorry?
Kristallnacht.
Of course. No, we didn't know anything about Kristallnacht other than people coming from Germany telling us that what happened. And listen, this was not as bad as the pogroms in Russia. The pogrom in Russia in 2003 to
03, 05.
Was terrible. I mean, people were decimated. All shtetls were completely destroyed. Our women were raped with Kristallnacht. An event that would, nobody really was got the true understanding what the Nazis planning to do. We had enough trouble dealing with the Arab population and the hostile British in Eretz Israel. So we couldn't, there was nothing, how much more hate can we do? How much more, and what can we do about it in terms of Germany? The only thing we can do is revolt against the British to try to force them to give us more opportunity to come. But we also heard about the ship of the German people who rented, with great cost,
St. Louis,
and to take them to America, and the great Mashiach, the President of the United States, would not allow them there. And then they decided, well, they go to Cuba, and the President of the United States forced Cuba not to take them and forced them to go back to Germany, and they all ended up in Dachau. We knew that.
How did you know that?
So how do we know that? only again from
People
word of
coming.
mouth.
Nope.
Word of mouth. And then sometimes the Palestine Post, which was before Jerusalem Post was called the Palestine Post, from time to time they did have an article of what's going on in Europe. This particular one took a big issue because we always looked at Franklin D. Roosevelt as the Goy Mashiach, and him not allowing there were 1,000 or 1,200 people. I mean, it wasn't a big deal. And the excuse was that maybe they were German spies, which was nonsense. It's pure nonsense. At the same time, taking thousands of Japanese, putting them in concentration camps. Native-born Japanese. It didn't make much sense, the whole thing, other than saying anti-Semitics. And so, where did we go? We only had to be to defend ourselves. Now come to bar mitzvah.
One question before the bar mitzvah. Yeah. In September of '39, you're 10 years old, and World War II officially begins when Germany enters Poland. Do you remember that? Do you remember what
I remember that very clearly, but we'll never discussion at home. The only time that really were extremely concerned was when the German got to Al Alamein, and if they won that battle, Egypt was completely on. The French, what was it called? The French supported the German.
Vichy.
Vichy was in Lebanon and Syria. The German and Vichy France coming in, Palestine would be gone. The Arabs were all in favor of the Nazis. Even the Palestinian Arabs were for, but the Arabs in Iraq were bombing British forces all over the place. So we knew that Al Alamein was very, very critical for the survival of the issue. But thank God that they succeeded and started. But even then, the issue begged the British people, the British government, to allow young Jews to serve in the army under their own battalion. No. Only toward maybe 1940, the end of 1943, the Jewish battalion. And thank God for that, because many of them trained, and then they came back and trained us.
Your bar mitzvah. You're going to tell a story about your bar mitzvah.
I'm sorry?
Your bar mitzvah. You're going to tell a story about.
Oh yeah, the story about mitzvah. In our synagogue, we didn't have a rabbi, we didn't have a cantor, we only have a shamash. So who's going to teach me? My father couldn't teach me. Thank God my brother Yosef could teach me. So it is our tradition that the bar mitzvah will read the whole parasha and also the haftarah. I have learned to read the parasha. And
which parsha? It's okay. It's okay. Go ahead.
It will come to me. Anyway, I remember the haftarah. ויקרבו ימי דוד למות, ויצב את בנו יחידו שלמה. Okay.
That's amazing. Did you remember the...
Yeah, I remember the Haftorah, but anyway, so the synagogue itself had maybe 20, 25 families. And we had an excellent Torah, who generally did that most of the time, but a lot of people participated in prayers, and it was really a community kind of participation. On my bar mitzvah, my brother Yosef was a gabbai, and the shamash was a gabbai, the second, the two of them. My father was sitting right next there, and my mother, we didn't have a place for women, but we had a pilon, and maybe 2 or 3 seats. The only female came to my bar mitzvah was my mother. And she sat behind the pilon. And while I'm reading the Torah, I'm facing the Aron. She is in my back. And the 2 people sitting next to Aron are the machers. One of them, while I'm reading, said, "Tizkiru et habilon." Well, I'm reading. I didn't know what was going on. I look around and I see my mother just a little bit down, just to see her son read the Torah. Not even a face, just one eye. I got all confused. I didn't know what I didn't know what was going on. She didn't know Hebrew. She didn't know what he was saying to her. So she finally, somebody went and closed it. And it was so embarrassing to me to do this to my mother. How can you do this? What did she do? I got so confused, I didn't know what to do. My brother Yosef, thank God, was close to me. He said, "You know what? Why don't you start the reading from the beginning?" That was Shlishi. So I said, okay. So I started the Shlishi, and then I went around and went through it. When we got home, the first time I ever really confronted my father, I never confronted my father. I said, "Father, why didn't you allow this person to do what he did? Why didn't you?" He said, "He's a bulvan." Everybody knows that he's a big mouth. I said, if I confronted him, the situation would have been much worse. It was better with people like that to ignore them, because that's the biggest punishment for them, is to ignore them.
Is to what?
To ignore them.
Right.
I said, but that is hilul. That's hilul. There is a halacha that you don't stop the reading of the Torah except for pikuach nefesh. My father never even knew that. He had to learn it from me. But that's the only time I ever confronted my father. But I let it go. But I said to myself, I'm never going to go back to that synagogue again, ever. So I will put my tefillin on at home. But Shabbat morning, I'll walk all the way from Machna Yehuda to the Kotel. And have Shachrit and Musaf in the Kotel, and then come back.
Okay, hold on 1 second. So,
I'm not finished.
go.
By my mitzvah.
Yeah.
So the first thing I did, I never went back to that synagogue. And the second thing I did was that Sunday, I went and joined the Haganah. How I got to the Haganah, my brother Yosef was the commander of the Notrim. The Notrim were the pre-Haganah. And he was commander of the Notrim in northern Yerushalayim. And the northern Yerushalayim were three kibbutzim, really. Motza Aleph, Motza Bet, and Kiryat Anavim. And what his role was to get people who will also join him and go to the kibbutzim on Erev Shabbat and let the members of the kibbutzim spend Shabbat with their family, and the Notrim will protect the kibbutz, because the Arabs knew when to come against the Jews. You know, Yom Kippur war was not an accident, and October 7th was not an accident. They knew exactly that the army, a lot of the army will be home. Anyway, from time to time he will take me with him to Motzah and spend Shabbat in the kibbutz. So, in a way, I began to understand what the roles of the Notrim were, and then the Notrim became the Haganah. So I certainly was already pre-programmed, so to speak, to join the Haganah. Although some of my friends actually joined the Irgun. And what was my role as a young guy? First of all, to start learning Zionism, because I never learned Zionism at home. I didn't know, because my parents didn't know. So I started learning. Maybe I should just, by my bar mitzvah, I got 3 gifts. My parents gave me a cheap watch, which was very. My brother Elli gave me a fountain pen. My brother Yosef gave me a book. What was the book? Josephus Flavius, The History, the War of the Jews. And believe it or not, I read the whole book. It took me about a year, so over 1,000 pages, but I was so fascinated by it. And the ability of the Jewish people at the time to revolt against Rome, more power. So in my young imagination, to try to force British to open up the gate and let the people from Europe come to Palestine and build our own country became to be a very important part of my life. So my role was, first of all, to learn about Zionism, to learn about the importance of what it means to come to Eretz Israel, to be an independent nation, not like my grandparents who came here because it was a religious obligation. It is an religious obligation, but it is also a national obligation. And that the two of them had to be together. You can't separate them. And that's where I learned that the division between Zionism and Israel is totally nonsense. You can't be a Zionist if you can't be anti-Israel if you are not a Zionist. And you can't be a Zionist and be against Israel. You can't. It's impossible. So people who do that are really playing games because it's artificial. So I learned that, and as I grow a little bit older, I got a little bit more of responsibilities. The Yeshud, a lot of the training of Haganah within Yerushalayim were done in schools. The British knew that, and from time to time they would raid a school to find out what arms they had and to confiscate them. But if they knew that, the first thing they would do, like people like me, go to school, especially occupied with a younger person, like, carrying books or whatever, but it's not a book, it's the Yalkut. The Yalkut were books, but going in, there is a policeman, he will open it, he will see books, and I used to take my niece, and she loved to spend time with me, and she didn't know what she was doing. I didn't know what she was doing. I was told, go to this school, you take this Yalkut with you, you will see a teacher, you will give him that Yalkut, he will give you a different Yalkut, you stay there 10, 15 minutes, and then you come back and go to another school and leave the Yalkut in the other school. But all dawn opened the Yalkut. Okay. I found out that going in was very light, but going out was very heavy. So eventually I figured out that what happened was there were some arms in that school that we really had to take it out. So a number of us, and I'm not the only one who did that, other kids at my age, the police would look and say, two kids and a little girl with me, He said, open the book. So I opened it, but coming out, they never asked to open it. So that was one of the things that I had to do.
At the age of 13?
Maybe a little over 14.
Agav.
13, I was just learning what Zionism is all about.
Right. Agav, what language was Josephus's book?
Hebrew, all Hebrew. Other than speaking at home Arabic, was only Hebrew, anyway.
And what were your feelings about Etzel and the Irgun?
We were programmed that they were wrong. Not that we had to, I knew friends who were in Etzel. I never knew anybody who was in Levy. Although, I must tell you, unfortunately, that's separate from my life. My older brother Yosef was arrested and sent to Eritrea because the British thought that he was a member of Levy. Nothing could have been more true. The guy, Yosef, was such a gentle human being, was such a soul. He couldn't even kill a fly. To kill another human being was totally. It turned out that somebody had the same name. So he was there for about a month, maybe 6 weeks. They let him go. Anyway, but it was a very, very difficult time for him. I personally, and none of my friends, could find fault in the Irgun. Did not like the Levy. Did not like Levy. The Irgun didn't go after people. He went after structure.
After?
Structure, like a police station. But they never bomb a police station without giving them a warning ahead of time. To us, to me at least, that was a decent thing to do. is you are going to destroy that building, but you're not going to kill the people. The same thing happened with King David. On King David, they gave him 10 minutes. 10 minutes. But the British said, "Are you crazy? This is the headquarters of the British Army and in Palestine." They couldn't believe that could happen. In a way, there was a pride, the ingenuity of being able to do such a thing, but at the same time, killing people. Some of them may be innocent. I don't know. To kill an innocent person was so anti-Jewish for me, and so I couldn't see that. But the Haganah was primarily to defend, and that's why it's called Haganah. It's defend. And defend, there is nothing anti-Jewish about defending your life, or the life of your family, or the life of your community. So I chose the Haganah. Anyway, slowly and slowly I got more and more responsibility, and I was 17, I think, 17 maybe. I don't, you have to forgive me, the dates and names are really not clear in my mind. Anyway, a knock on the door, middle of the night, the British came. He said, "Avraham Mizrahi, yeah, you have to come with us." The British Army. My mother said, "What did they do?" I said, "You will find out tomorrow." So I went with them. They put me in the prison no, not the first time, the second time. The first time in the old city. I don't remember the name of the, I've never, in the old city, there were about 20 Arab criminals. I was the only Jew. They didn't know I knew Arabic, so I heard one of them saying to the other, "Watch out for this guy, that Lehi." They spread the rumor that I was a member of Lehi, and they were afraid. They were afraid. So they left me alone. The next morning, they took me, the British took me to Latrun. And I was in Latrun for 11 months.
This is 1946, 47?
46.
46.
46 and part of 47. Exact dates, I don't remember.
That's fine.
Anyway, they made a mistake. In Latrun, there were two camps. One camp was for Irgun and Etzel, and the other was for Haganah, Palmach and Haganah. They put me in the Irgun. And the next morning, the lawyer came. He said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I don't know. Well, I didn't understand it." He said, "Well, there are two camps. You don't belong here. You belong in the other one. You're Haganah." He said, "I will arrange for you to be moved to the other one." I didn't know either one. It didn't matter. So they moved me to the other camp, and the camp was in Strif, and each Strif had about 20 people. And each Strif has a commander, and my commander was Tzvi Zamir. I don't know if you know anything about Tzvi Zamir. Tzvi Zamir and I became very close. But he was, that happened soon after the King David
Blowed up.
Bombing. So I don't know, I had nothing to do with that. I don't know why I was there. I find out that after the bombing, the British went into the Sochnut and took all the writing all the listing and all that. Apparently, my list was a member of Haganah, so that's how they took me. But there were a number of leaders of the Sochnut with us. I never had any contact with them, only Tzvi Zamir had it. I stayed there. The camp was closed with the gate, no gates, there were wire, yeah, and then another one, and another one. And my mother would come to visit maybe once a month, every 2 months, and we can't keep the face-to-face. She would wave to me, I would wave to me, and I called her. I couldn't get anything from her. She was not allowed to give me anything. I never allowed to say anything to her. So I said, there is really no point of you coming to visit. We can, I'm fine. If something happened to me, you will know it. So she agreed to stop to come. She did come. She came maybe 2 or 3 times. My father never came because he was working. He couldn't do it. Shabbat he would not do it. So I stayed there for about 11 months. And then, for whatever reason and how, was while there, Tzvika Zamir realized that I was fluent in Arabic, speaking Arabic. He said, we have a special unit in the Palmach, and I think you will fit into it. Would you be willing to do that? I said, of course. Okay. So he said, when you are released, I'm going to send you to arrange for you to go into a kibbutz where you're going to get training and you will join. So, but how old are you? I said, I'm 17. He said, we can't take anybody who's not 18. So I took my birth certificate. Certificate was for April 14, 1929. 9, I changed into 8. It's not the same. I mean, you can take a look at it and say, of course there's a misery. But they didn't care. They really wanted me. They needed people who really were speaking Arabic and willing to join. It was not, it was a dangerous life, not an easy life. Anyway, they look at it and they close their eyes and say, yeah, you're 18, that's fine. So I became a Palmachnik in the Arab unit. It was a special unit called the Arab. We in the unit called ourselves Al-Halqa Shora. You look at me now, you don't realize it, but all I need to do is, at the time, be in the sun for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and I look very dark. And being able to speak Arabic and dress with Arab clothing, I can pass as an Arab easily. My accent was purely Arabic, so there was no question like an Ashkenazi speaking Arabic. So after the 11 months in Latrun, they sent me to a kibbutz called no, Aylat HaShachar is different. In lower, anyway, I don't remember the name of it. Huh? Dalia. Thank you. Kibbutz Dalia. Now, Kibbutz Dalia was totally secular. Actually, they probably were more communist than even socialist. No Shabbat. Anyway, what we did was we get up at 5:30 in the morning. At 6 o'clock, we're going into the field, either to get fruit from the trees or to clear an area from stones for agricultural equipment. And that until 12 o'clock. At 1 o'clock, we, and I was not the only one, there were a couple other people in my, now went into training with the Bama. And the training was small arms and tactics and how to navigate at night in the dark, recognize danger areas, how you recognize it, how you avoid it, and things of that nature. So I was finished the training, and I was going to start the first trip as an Arab, dressed as an Arab, to go and the route where the Palmach unit was going to go into Lebanon and bring in 2 Syrian families that were defended and protected by the people who are now Hezbollah. They were our best friends. They were absolutely our best friends. And the people, Jewish people who escaped Syria, came into the Bekaa Valley, and they were protected by the Shiite Muslims. I had good relationship with them, and the Palmach would go in and bring them across the border. But my role, our role was, the 3 of us, was to go through the area where the force was going to come, to be sure that there was no obstacles, that there was no place where they're going to be ambushed, to actually go into some Arab villages and see what's going on out there. We'll go into a cafe and speak Arabic with each other and have a cup of coffee and just keep looking and seeing whether any activity was going on. And if there was, we have to let the force know. Anyway, so they told us we were going to get into Ginosar, where from there we can't really, Ginosar is really closer to Syria than to Lebanon, but in Ginosar we will get all the direction and what to do, and all the people and the fighting force will have whatever training they need in the Ginosar. And then they told us, but to go into Lebanon, we're not going to go from Ginosar, we're going to go from Elli to Shachar, up just before Kriyat Shmona. As our finishing that, my commander comes to tell me, I just got a phone from your family, your mother is very sick, she's in the hospital, and you need to go back to Yerushalayim. He said, don't worry about it, we will manage. I was a neophyte, I was a new Kalmachnik, so it was not too difficult to replace me. I was still learning, essentially. So, so I felt, okay, I will come. I have to go and see my mother. So I took the bus to go to Yerushalayim. As I got to Yerushalayim, it turned out that was the last bus getting to Yerushalayim, because the Arabs took the Castile and closed the road, cut off the water, cut off the electricity, cut off all ability to communicate with the rest of the world except telephone. They couldn't really close that. The British were still there, but they didn't, they're neutral. They were not going to do anything. So I was stuck in Yerushalayim. I couldn't go back to my unit. So I went to see my mother in the hospital. She was at Hadassah Hospital. Hadassah was all over the city. A little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. So Baruch Hashem, she was not really terrible. She has a terrible asthma, and she got the right treatment. Everything was going all right. But I now couldn't go back to my unit, so I reported to Haganah headquarters in Yerushalayim, and they gave me. They said, "Well, we need you. We have things for us to do, but we'll keep in touch and we'll let you know what role you'll have." Okay. In the meantime, every Friday at 1 o'clock, the Arabs would leave the old city and come to West Yerushalayim, burning any kind of Jewish property was destroyed, and the British would not intervene. So my commander already gave me a command because I already have training as a commander. They gave me pluga, which was 12 people. I was told, here's a mafteach in Mamilla. There is a building. That's the building. This is the apartment number. That's the key. You take your people, and you watch the Arabs coming from from
the old city.
From the old city, and don't interfere until they get to this point. If they cross that line, you have to stop. But what they do, they gave us handguns and stun grenade. The stun grenade were really the only thing that was useful. The handguns were not useful because they're too far, they're too distant. Anyway.
Do you remember what kind of gun? What kind of gun?
Handguns. Beretta and Mauser and things. Just handgun, not rifles. And it's too far. It's silly. The worst part was they didn't realize that across the building, which was a much higher building, on top there were a British military what do you call it? Defense area. But the defense was pointed to West Yerushalayim, not to East Yerushalayim. They were not going to do anything. The problem is you can see exactly what we were doing. Mm-hmm. Under normal circumstances, we'll never have accepted that without looking at the place to be sure that if I'm taking my people, I'm taking them to a safe place. But it was urgent. It was like 1:45, and we knew that the Arabs coming in. And I really assume that whoever gave me that command to do already surveilled, and it was safe to take there. So I went there. I took it for granted. Lo and behold, 10 minutes after we got there, and the British came to us. I hear people, steps going on the steps, and I realized immediately that this is really what the British are coming. I told my people, whatever ammunition you have or guns you have, take it off your body, put it anywhere, it doesn't matter. They will find it. It doesn't matter. As long as they don't find it on your own body, you are at least, the lawyers can do something with it. But so we put it all over our arm. They all, immediately, they found all that. They arrested all of us. And I took it upon myself to tell the British who we are. I said the head of, was one of the investigators, whatever. He came to talk to me. He asked somebody, who's your mefaked? They told me it's me. I said, we are Haganah. He said, you sure you're Haganah? No, you're going. No, I'm not Irgun. We are Haganah. Okay? So there's no further discussion about it. I didn't tell him. Okay? So we arrested all of us that were arrested. And I believe it was maybe a week later, we were court-martialed. And we had a lawyer. The lawyer gave me a statement to make, and the statement said very simply this: we are members of the Haganah. Our role is to defend the people and property of the Jewish people in Palestine. It is your responsibility under the League of Nations mandate to defend us. And Your Honor, I am sorry to say that you did not fulfill that requirement. So we had to take it upon ourselves, and we are simply defending our role, a role that you should have done, and Jewish life and Jewish property is not to be taken without penalty. So the next day was a big article in Davar with my name. I wish I kept that paper. I didn't keep it. Anyway, I don't know exactly what happened. We were in prison, separated. We're not all together at the same time, for maybe 2 weeks, and then we were discharged. And I never was told. However, I took it upon myself to go and see my commander, who told me what to do. I said, I can't believe that you did not do what you were supposed to do to be sure that I was able to take my people to a safe place. He said, you are absolutely right. I made a terrible mistake. I didn't go to look at the place ahead of time. I'm very sorry about it, and I don't know what to say about it, other than the fact that I really made a mistake. I liked it because he never said, well, I was fulfilling command from it. He didn't shift his responsibility, accepted responsibility. If he did that, I would have gone over his head, because it was a stupid thing for him to do. First of all, to give us that kind of arms. What can we do with hand arms when they are so far? At least couple of what they call long gun, and a rifle. No, not one single rifle, nothing. And right there, the British looking down on us immediately. Anyway, so that is the second time I was arrested by the British. So
Is this before or after the partition vote?
after,
Before the partition vote.
oh yeah, well after the partition, the partition plan was given in November 1947.
Yes.
This was early 1948 already. Now, the politics that were involved was way over my head, but I know a little bit about what happened.
I want to go back for 1 second. When you were in the coffee house in Lebanon,
I never got there because I was told to come to Yerushalayim to see my mother.
no. Before that,
Yeah.
before you were in Ginosar, you were in Lebanon. That's what you were saying.
No.
Did I know?
We got together in Ginosar.
What did you do before Ginosar?
Before Ginosar, I was
Yes.
in Yerushalayim. I was in
I was in
the kibbutz Dalia. Kibbutz
oh.
Dalia.
When you said you were looking around to see what was going on, you said you were talking about the training for that. You didn't actually do it.
Training. I was training.
Okay,
Training.
fine.
Well,
Where were
I
you?
went through the line,
Yes.
but I never crossed.
Hivanti. Where were you on the partition vote? That day, where were you?
I was, the partition plan was November, that's the,
29th,
I think I was still in that room.
in the Troon.
I believe so. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
אני חושב שאסירי ההגנה שוחררו
Maybe.
בתחילת 47. המעצר היה בשבת השחורה ומלון המלך דוד, היו בערך 9 חודשים. אתה לא זוכר את החגיגות שראית, ריקודים איפשהו?
I was wondering,
כי זה כבר נובמבר.
בהכרזה...
לא, בכ"ט בנובמבר.
Yes, right.
Anyway.
Even in the Troon, right, if you were in the Troon, didn't they know about the vote in the Troon that was happening at the UN, the partition?
As I said, we had leaders of the yeshuv with us. I think
משה שרת היה שם.
Moshe Sharet and also Levy Eshkol. But we have no contact with them, only Tzvi Zamir had.
Okay.
And Tzvi Zamir will get that, they will tell us. They will come to the Tzvi and tell us what the situation was. So he kept us informed of what's going on. Anyway, the partition plan, I'm not, the dates and names are so confusing in my mind. There's so much happened in my life after that I really can't, part of the problems I have is separate the dates and all that.
That's fine.
But it's all confusing.
It's fine. The stories are important.
Anyway, so that was the second time I was arrested by the British. But I was, years later, Debbie was going to, what was the museum that you went to? It wasn't the Palmach Museum.
To the Palmach Museum.
The Palmach Museum.
Yeah.
The Palmach Museum, she was visiting.
Was doing this, this project.
Hivanti.
And she wanted to find out about me, and the receptionist told her, I don't know, why don't you ask this guy, he's a Palmachnik. So she said, call him. She said, I want to know about my father. And he said, what's your father's name? He said, Avraham Mizrahi. Avraham Mizrahi from Yerushalayim? Yes. Oh, okay, you wait here. He went back and came back later with...
The whole file.
No. The book that he had written about his experience, this man, that guy and my father had been in Latrobe together. And he has the doch when they were arrested.
Terrific.
By the British, and the how much money the Palmach paid for them for the shikhrur. And we got home, and I said to my father, do you know this guy named Shraga? My father goes, Shraga? Where did you meet Shraga? Like, he turned white, And yeah, he was the archeon, and he worked in the archeon in the
Hamad Museum. Yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
it was remarkable. So Liat has some pictures in her avodah from
What is this?
Shraga's book. Liati's avodah from
No, I mean this.
this.
Oh, no, that was just paper we needed.
Oh, that's yours. Okay. Anyway, one important thing was, again, exactly, I don't remember the date, my mefaked in Yerushalayim, not my immediate, but mefaked Yerushalayim, said that we are going to send a contingency to the Kfar Etzion, because Kfar Etzion is in terrible situation, and we need to get people there. You have done that trip a number of times during the night, and I would like you to lead there, not command, because there is a commander from the Palmach, but to lead the group.
Yeah.
And I said, how many people are going to be? He said, with you will be 38. I said, okay, I'll be happy to do it. Unfortunately, 3 days before we were supposed to go, I was sick and I had to be admitted to the hospital. And I had jaundice, and it was a serious situation. So unfortunately, somebody else had to take my room. So it became, instead of 38, now it got 37. But they found somebody else to be able to lead them. While in the hospital, I really needed to know what was going on, but they will let me know. The commander of Yerushalayim, we called him Gingy, what's his name? Shaltiel. Shaltiel came to visit me to let me know what was going on with the 37. He told me that about a few hours as they were going, one of the guys had injured his foot and he couldn't go. They had to send him back, but they can't send him back by himself, so they have to send him back with another guy. So 37 became 35. And then they told me that they found some obstacles that they couldn't get to, that they have to come back and go the other way. I felt guilty because I would have done it easily because I knew the area very well. I knew every Arab village, how to circumvent it. I knew the caves where people can actually take a rest for 10, 15 minutes, go to the bathroom, do whatever they necessary. They were carrying a lot of heavy stuff. And they couldn't go all the way. It's not really that far, but carrying it at night, it was mountains, all mountains. So I felt very guilty. To this day, I feel guilty, but I couldn't. The doctors said that you have to be in a hospital. My health situation was really very precarious at the time. The dollar hell, everything went out to fight.
Isn't it ironic that your father felt guilty for surviving Hebron in 29 and you felt guilty for surviving?
Right. The reason I knew the area is because I took people in that area for training. Because I can go to a cave and sit safe with people outside guarding and go through teaching them how to use arms, how to take a gun apart, clean it, put it back together. The guys never had an opportunity to shoot. So in the cave they can do it with safety. Whereas in Yerushalayim I couldn't do it. Where can I do it? The British were all over the place. So I knew the area very well. And eventually I always ended up in Kfar Etzion. And from Kfar Etzion, then I walked back. Back to Yerushalayim. Anyway.
What's the story with the dogs?
I'm sorry?
Story of the dogs.
Your idea with taking the dogs.
Taking,
Dog.
oh. Yeah. I knew that the Arabs don't allow their dogs into the house at night. So the problem is, you can't really, the population is, you can, if you don't know exactly how to circumvent the home or the village, you face people with dogs outside and start barking, and the guy will come out to see what's going on. So my idea was to send the dog to bark at that dog over there. The guy would come out and look and see that's another dog. You throw some stone at him and say, "Dog, hold up," and the owner will call the dog back, and the dog was very obedient, would come right back. So if we go back and their dog will start barking again, the guy will say, the dog came back, so just leave him alone. So that was my idea.
And it worked?
And I don't know,
because you weren't, yeah.
Because I didn't go with him anymore.
Right.
And whether they actually use that or not, I doubt it. Because if they do that, they didn't really have to come back and go back around. They have to come back, instead of coming from the west, they came back from the north and then from the east. And that was not an area that I was that familiar with, and I don't know actually what happened. I know that a woman was out collecting wood for a fire to complete the house, and she saw all this people, and she ran back into the village, Yehud, 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 and that's how that happened. But I didn't know anything about it.
How'd you find out?
Shaltiel told me.
And you were in the hospital at 1 second?
Because they were in contact with us.
Yes.
So they knew. And there was no way that we can send any, we didn't have any people to send them to protect them. And the British Army was only 10 minutes away, but they didn't want to do anything.
So the next...
Two of my closest friends were there killed. One of them was in my class in Talmud Torah. The other one is my friend in Latroon.
Now this...
More than 50% of them were all university students.
This is the day before before...
2 days before,
2 days, right.
Before I was admitted to the hospital. 2 days before the actual go, we're all taking all the people together, deciding who should go and what kind of materials to carry with them, because there was a limit on how much they can carry. And the leader of, I forgot his name.
Danny Mas.
Yeah. I met him just very shortly because I was told him how my plan was to go, and he had to approve it. But he realized that I had the knowledge to do it. Well, I had no problem. But
where were you when Ben Gurion announced the state?
I'm getting to that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll shut up. Go ahead.
So you can imagine how I felt that when I learned that all those people were not only killed, were dismembered. And that was one of the things that the Arabs always liked to do. After killing the Jews, they dismembered them. And you know what? Their religion does not allow that. They violate every law of their own religion. Anyway, after I got better, I was in the hospital for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. Shaltiel said to me, "What can I do for you? What shall we do?" I said, "Look, I'm here. Whatever you want me to do, let me know." He said, "Well, we have a big problem with the British, and we need to do some kind of surveillance about some of the people that we think we may be able to recruit for us. Would you be able to do some of the surveillance?" I said, "I can do whatever you want me to do, provided that you think I'm able to do it." I said, "Yeah, you'll be able to do it." So I was give names of British officers to follow and just to find out what they do. I write. So we find out what Jewish girlfriends they had. So that was a very critical information. So now if we can recruit the girlfriend, maybe we can recruit, but that was beyond my, that was for somebody else to do. So, but I did that. So, and then the announcement was going to be Friday afternoon, May 14, 1948. And I was in Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim was still now closed. The Arabs were closing it.
You had the barbed wire downtown.
Now, somebody, and I don't know who, have had the idea that we will have all the people who were interested to come to Kikar Zion, right in the middle of Yerushalayim, and there were loudspeakers all over, and that we can hear the announcement coming from Tel Aviv. 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Kikar Zion was full. Standing over and waiting, everybody talking quietly, waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and that announcement doesn't come. Finally, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the squeaky voice of the Ben-Gurion, and when he finished, he said, the new Jewish state will be called the State of Israel. Spontaneous dancing and singing. And what is the dancing at the time? The horror. That was the only thing that was purely Israeli. So everybody was dancing around. And all of a sudden it was quiet. Because on the other side, there was a the building with an outside Mirpeset, a big Mirpeset. A guy comes out with a lot of people, and everybody look at him and say, "My God, this is Menachem Begin." Menachem Begin gave a speech that was fiery about the unity of the Jewish people that we are here and we have to defend our country. And it was really the first time everybody knew who Avraham Begin was, and nobody saw him. For the first time, people were Avraham Begin, and he was an incredible orator. He was really had a tremendous knowledge of the Hebrew word, and never fumbling like I do, or I don't know. He was really, and people, even people like me who are not Irgun, were clapping and happy and so on. And all of a sudden, the Jordan Arab Legion started bombing Jerusalem. So everybody dispensed, and of course I had to go and take a look to be sure that my parents were in the Martev, to be sure that they were safe. On that building, we lived upstairs. My sister and her family lived downstairs. There was a Martev, so everybody had to go into the Martev. Once they were there, then I had to go and find out what else they want me to do. So my commander said, we need protection from snipers from the wall. So I am giving you command of Har Zion. Your area is from this to that. Other people have other parts, but this is your part, including Yemin Moshe. Now, Yemin Moshe was already vacated. Nobody lived in Yemin Moshe anymore. But how to get to was really hard. The engineering, the military engineering, cut holes in different houses, and we go from one house to another house to another house to another house to another house. Sometimes we have to crawl, sometimes we can walk, but then we get to an area where from the mount, from the wall, they can't see us. So we can actually go up safely, but there comes a point where we are open and we have to run to get to where we were. Once we are there, okay. So I was in Har Zion. So I don't know if you want to see pictures of that. We went one. At one point, a contingency of military came at Har Zion to rest. They were going to go into the gate Zion itself to get into Jerusalem. And my understanding was that there was a diversion. They on purpose gave information or appearance that they're going to come through Damascus Gate. So there were contingency of Israeli army connecting in Yemin Moshe next to. So the Jordanian army moved their army closer to Damascus Gate, whereas we went into Zion Gate. It's just entirely the opposite. They actually blew up the gate. They went exactly into the Jewish quarter, and all they have to do was get the people out and all the Sifrei Torah. There were over 20 or 25 great Sifrei Torah that they had to bring it out, but we couldn't hold it. We didn't have enough people to be able to hold it. But they were able to get out. But my unit had to be able to be sure that there were no snipers on that, and to provide them with whatever assistance that they needed so that they can go and do their job at Zion Gate. From then on, the British left, and one of the first things that Ben-Gurion wanted to do is to bring the remnants of the Holocaust who were caught by the British. They were put in Kafrsin, and there were Haganah people and sent to Kafrsin to try to train them, and they wanted to come back. And the first boat that was going to bring them into Palestine after the armistice. The first armistice was what? In November, November 1949. Again, you know, the dates are...
11 of June, ההפוגה הראשונה.
11th of June 49, correct. June of 49.
49.
Yeah.
48.
No, from May to June? No. No. It was a year.
Yeah, that was the end of the war. The end was the war was ending in March 49.
סליחה.
There were ceasefires.
Yes.
But I'm talking about not ceasefire. I'm talking about a more stage. It wasn't peace. It was
the end of the war.
the end of the war was armistice agreement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It was a peace agreement.
Yes,
I
correct.
remember Ralph Bunche,
Yes.
the Undersecretary General of the United Nations,
Yes.
was able to get an armistice agreement with Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria.
Yeah.
Yes.
So at that point, we were able to freely bring the people safely back into Israel.
Yeah.
So the first boat was, Ben-Gurion called it the Negev, because he always felt that the Negev is the future of Israel. Not the other parts were not important, but the Negev was so wide open and so empty, so a lot of people can really, at one time actually people have figured out that there were about 5 million people living in the Negev. 5 million people living in the Negev. So it's not really a desert. It's one. I mean, once you go to the Negev, right after rainfall, and you see what incredible flowers all over the place. I mean, it was just. It's a very fertile plant if you can do it. And anyway, so it was a very exciting thing. For me, it was a very exciting thing to see the people coming into Palestine.
From Cyprus.
I asked permission from my commander to go to Haifa and welcome. He said, I wish I can do it. You can go ahead and do it. I forgot to tell you that my older brother, Elli, who was a sniper, and he has his responsibilities in Haratzafim. Haratzafim, not as a military, but as, although he was a military, but they were dressed as police, because the agreement was only police can go into Haratzafim. So when she came back, my mother said to me, can you find something for Elli to do? I said, what can I do? I'm an officer. I said, I will see if he can be my driver. And I said, okay. So he agreed to be my driver. So a jeep was given to me. So my commander said, okay, you can take a jeep and go, but when you come back to tell me everything about it. I said, fine. So I go, and obviously there were hundreds and thousands of people had the same idea to welcome these people in. But Elli, my brother, and I were right in the beginning, right in the face. And right next to us was a rabbi, all big building. And as the people come, as the boat coming in, it's very quiet. And all you see is they put the planks in so that the people can walk down. But the first people going, not coming down, but going in. The police going in to deal with the captain and his workers to be sure that they have the right to come later on. And then Israeli military young men and women go up with stretchers and bringing in people who were there. There were ambulances waiting, and they put them in an ambulance and take them home. Then people with wheelchairs taken to them. And after that, the multitude of people coming in. And you see people, old people, young people, pregnant women holding children. And I'm crying. I can't stop crying. My brother said, "What are you doing?" It's very happy. I said, "Yeah, it's very happy, but it's more. It's a fulfillment of a prophecy." He said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I can't tell you. You have to read it yourself." I said, "Read what?" I said, "Read Yirmiyahu, Peleg 31. The rabbi listened to our discussion, and he tells to my brother, he said, "Your brother is right. You really should read Yirmiyahu 31, and you understand how important is what we're seeing now. It's precisely what the people, what Yirmiyahu said." זקן ופסח, אישה יורדת, הרב יורדת home. Precisely like what we're seeing. And my brother couldn't believe it. I always had the Tanakh with me. And so when we finished, everybody was gone, and then they were taken to different kibbutzim and different places. I took, and I showed it, and I said, "I wanted to read Peleg 31 of Yirmiyahu." And they said, "Well, unbelievable." They couldn't believe how precisely that prophecy. I said, "You have any idea how lucky we are that we're living in a place and a time where a prophecy is actually fulfilled?" So,
I want to ask you two questions. When you were hiding and looking at the snipers on the top of the wall of the old city from Moshe, you're looking up. Now, did you see the Jews from the Rova? Because they came out of Har Tzion.
yes.
Did they come towards you?
Yes.
You saw them?
Absolutely. And there were some, couldn't get everybody who was living there, but enough old people and women who were in the Jewish quarter were taken out, but not all of them. But the Sefer Torah, the people were so excited about it, being able to take them out. And later on, we find out what the Arab Legion did with the Matzavot and Har HaZeitim. I couldn't believe that they will do such a disgusting thing. What a horrible thing. What was the purpose of doing this kind of thing? Anyway.
The other question I have is, do you have anything to say about the Altalena?
I'm sorry?
Do you have anything to say about the Altalena?
About?
The Altalena.
Oh, the Altalena. I was not involved in it, but I knew all of it. Begin insisted that the Irgun should be separate from Irgun, should have its own battalions. Ben-Gurion said, no. we're going to have one army. All the commanders in Irgun that have the proper training will get the proper commission in the Israeli army, but there will be only one army. Atlanta was going to bring the arms and give it only to Irgun. He said, no, we can't do that. We are one nation. We're going to have just one army, and it's not going to be separated. And for whatever reason, Begin didn't want to do it. And I, with all the terrible things that I feel about it, I think that Ben-Gurion had no other choice but to give the right way. What he did was the right thing to do. You can't separate it. We are separated anyway. And this is after 2,000 years, we are free and we have to be together. We knew that we're going to have problems because we have the Haredim, we have the Orthodox, we have the seculars, we have the communists, we have the labor. We knew that we are not unit, but we could not afford the army not to be unit. Because the army, according to Ben-Gurion, was specifically to unite the people together. You know that as a Sephardi or Mizrahi, I was second-class citizen in my own state.
You felt that?
Absolutely, without doubt, without question. How many people signed the Declaration of Independence?
38, I think.
41 or 42, not a single one that was either Mizrahi or Ashkenazi. All of them were Ashkenazi. Hava Yishuv, and people who lived in Israel all the time and never left were Mizrahim, not Ashkenazim, Mizrahim. And none of them, not one, had the right to declare, yes, this is independence. Of course we were second citizen, no that question. I don't think there's any doubt. Even today, there is still a lot of feeling between, and I'm not justifying it, and I'm not condemning it either, because I know I grew up in that environment. I know how superstitious we were, how rigid religiously we were, that we cannot compromise on anything. When I told my father that I'm going to America, and that's a different story, but I'm going to America to study, he said, I don't know anything about America, but I only hear that people drive on Shabbat to go to the synagogue. It's a concept that he couldn't imagine. How can somebody drive on Shabbat to go to the synagogue? He said, even on Yom Kippur, they drive. That's what I hear. I said, I don't know. I said, but you have to promise me. I said, what? If you find yourself in that situation, you never read Torah, and you never read Haftarah. Everything else you are allowed to do, because the law of the country is the law. Dina de malchutai dina. But you are not going to Halel Shabbat to go to the synagogue driving. And if you have to do that, because of the distance or whatever, at least don't contaminate reading Torah or reading Haftarah. Okay. To me, I don't see what the difference is. If you go to the synagogue and you drive on Shabbat, what difference is whether you're going to say Shachrit or we read the Torah? That was it. I promised. So I really, actually, I did break it because I find myself in a synagogue where nobody can read Torah.
Where was this?
And we were visiting friends in Virginia, and my friend had to say Kaddish, and we go to the synagogue, and nobody can read Torah. So I said, I'm sure my father will forgive me.
Okay, let's go back to the war.
Yeah, I was in America already, so.
We're good? Okay.
Anyway,
Okay.
once I finished with that, then
With what?
once the people were coming from Kafrsin, now we have the other problem. The huge problem was, of course, the Jewish people in the Arab countries.
Yes.
They were coming now. Now we have to accommodate them. Now I have a different responsibility altogether. So what we did was we had what we called Ma'arabot. Ma'arabot, well, a camp with Shorashim, and people coming from Egypt will go into one Ma'arabah. People coming from Yemen will be another one. People coming from Morocco will be another one. I was given the authority to represent the army in Ma'arabah, in Egyptian Ma'arabah.
Where?
Egyptian Ma'arabah.
Where was it located?
Somewhere in the Sharon.
Okay.
I don't even remember. So my role was to meet with everybody who was 18 and over, male, not female, to find out what they did in Egypt, what friends they had, what kind of a job they had, and what activities they engaged in, and to find out if they have some information that will be very essential for us to know. And if in my judgment, that person does have information that will be useful to Israel to know, then I will send them to Tel HaShomer, and they will have a much more detailed investigation. And at the Ma'arabah, there were a nurse taking care of health issues. There were social people who tried to find out what kind of jobs they can, where they want to live and all that. But I represented the army. And my responsibility was not to recruit. My responsibility was to find out if I was in the intelligence. And all I had to do was to find out if these people, in my judgment, can have information that will be useful to me, so I can actually arrange for them to go to Tel HaShomer. I don't know. You want to see any information?
Pictures we'll do afterwards. We'll do pictures afterwards.
Oh, okay.
Continue the story.
I mean, I think after that, that was my the army, and I was in the middle of that when I was entitled to leave the army, but I decided to stay another year to see, first of all, if I really army life would be good for me, and I can stay in the army as a career. And I found out that really the army was not for me. So when the time came, I was relieved. I was discharged from the army, and I immediately got a job at the Prime Minister's office.
We'll get to that in a second. The army. Where did you sleep? Where did you eat? How did you eat?
So I ate with my people. For the most part, we had to fend for ourselves. Whether we go to a Makolet and get the food if there was available. During the siege of Jerusalem, there was no food. There was nothing. There was no milk. Actually, I was responsible to go to Ramat Rachel and get milk and bring it to Yerushalayim and then give it to the police to distribute it properly to people who needed it the most. It wasn't enough to give to everybody. The same thing with water. Well, I didn't bathe for 6 weeks or more than 6 weeks. I didn't shave for some more than 6 weeks. There was no water. Absolutely, there was no water.
How did you have money to buy food?
Am I?
How did you have money to buy food?
No money. No money.
You said you went to the Makola.
No money would take it. No money. I don't ever remember being paid. My money went directly to my father from the army. I don't even know how much I was paid, or how I was paid.
Where did you
It was going to my father.
You said
Yeah, it would belong to him, not to me. I got an allowance from him. That's all.
Where did you sleep?
I slept in tents. I have pictures of where I slept in tent with Palmachnik or in the street. When I was in Yerushalayim, I always lived with my parents. But when I am on maneuvers, we lived in the field, wherever it was. It's not like today.
Yes.
It was very, very different. A lot of decisions were made by the seat of your pants.
By who?
But the seat of your pants.
Yes, yes.
Like defending Mamilla was a stupid, so unprofessional. But in his mind, that was the way I wanted to do it. Actually, frankly, in my opinion, sending the Lamed Vav to Kfar Etzion was stupid. Strategically, was stupid. They were totally surrounded by hostile Arabs, totally isolated. We could do it once. How many more times can we do it? We didn't have enough people to do it. So, and there were kibbutzim next to Jenin in Arab, where Ben Gurion said they have to be evacuated because we can't defend them. There were 2 other kibbutzim, small kibbutzim next to Kfar Etzion. Ben Gurion said you cannot stay there, you have to vacate and join Kfar Etzion. Now, why we had to spend so much effort to protect a place that eventually we had to let go. We couldn't. There was no way strategically that we're going to keep Kfar Etzion. We couldn't. We didn't have enough people. The whole army, including the Haganah, the Etzel, and the Irgun, Palach, and everybody else, 25,000. We didn't even have arms to fight to give the 25,000. When I left my position, I had to give my arms to the guy who was going to replace me. So actually, I carry 2. I have one that I kept for myself all the time, and the other one I had to give it to him.
So what was your feeling in 1967? How did you feel in 67 when we went back to Kfar Etzion?
We had members in our area where we lived, a lot of Jewish people, crying. What's going to happen to Israel? What's going to happen to Israel? We hear all this propaganda from the Arab countries. Dozens of airplanes were shot down, Israeli airplanes, armies of promotion. All this is propaganda, none of it is true. None of it is true.
How did you know?
I know Arab mentality. I know when the Arab lie and when they don't lie. I know precisely. That's what one of the things that was good for me is knowing when the Arab was telling the truth and when the Arab was lying to me. The elation, how quickly we can defeat Egypt, Syria, and Lebanon, and Jordan in just few days was beyond my ability to absorb. But I had full confidence that this war is going to be Israeli winning. I had no question about it. My feeling about the Yom Kippur War was entirely different. I had full confidence in the Six-Day War that we would win the war. Well, if we survived the War of Independence with 25,000 people on arms against a whole army of Egypt, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon, the Six-Day War was a joke compared to that. I mean, I have full confidence that we are going to win. And I gave that the people who consulted me and said, I give you my promise that we are going to win this war. It's going to cost us a lot, but we will win this war. So,
how did you feel when you heard that Israel had recaptured Gush Etzion?
When I was said, this now justifies what my parents did to come, live, and come in Israel. Did it justify sending the 36, the Lamed Vav? No, it didn't. In my opinion, that was a strategic mistake that we sacrificed unbelievably competent people. They were all, more than 50% of them are Hebrew University students. They're capable. One of them, close my friend, by Yaakov Ben Attar, his uncle was, later on became the president of the state of Israel. I forgot his name. It was the only Sfaradi.
Yitzhak Navon.
Thank you. It was his uncle. Yaakov Ben Attar was my closest friend growing up. He was brilliant. And the other guy that I knew from Latrun was brilliant. The university, it was so difficult to get in the Hebrew University at the time. You really have to be a very bright guy to be admitted to as a student at the Hebrew University. It was the only one university. The Technion was only for mehandisim, only for
engineers. Am I missing something? Tell me. You've heard everything, so just let me, if there'd be a nikudah that I didn't know to know.
I'm trying to think if there's something
Missing.
something missing.
Oh, what I did.
How much, okay.
How did I came to America?
Yes.
I'm going to have to make lunch.
I was working at the Prime Minister's office. The Prime Minister's office was in Yerushalayim, but Ben-Gurion was the Prime Minister, but also the Defense Minister. And his primary responsibility, or more important, was getting the army together. So he spent most of the time in Tel Aviv as the Minister of Defense. In Yerushalayim, the General Secretary of the Prime Minister's office was the one who became the Huh?
Perez?
Perez?
Shimon Perez?
No, Shimon Peres was the German for the defense ministry. Teddy Kollek. Teddy Kollek was, but he had no knowledge of what my group was doing.
What was your job?
That's what I'm telling you. We were 4 people, only a very secret kind of department. 4 people. We reported directly to Ben Gurion. My department head reported, but Ben Gurion was so busy, we reported directly to Shimon Peres. And Shimon Peres would talk to. There's a lot of friction between the Labour Party, Mapai, and Mapam. The fight was Mapam wanted to align itself with the Soviet Union. Ben Gurion wanted to align himself with the United States. It was a socialist versus a communist. And he was not sure the people that he's putting in the government at critical position, what their political alliances were. So that was our job. Everybody in important position had the clearance from the police because of criminal activity or whatever. But he went one step further. He wanted to know what kind of loyalties does he have. So our job was to investigate his relationship with the outside world and other people that he negotiated with. And if it was more communist relationship, he really would not want to put him in a position of influence. That was our job. But I couldn't say that. So when somebody asked me, what do you do in a department, in the post, in משרד ראש הממשלה, I said, I was private secretary. I managed his calendar, Ben Gurion calendar. But from time to time, Ben Gurion wanted to listen to us directly. So I would meet with Ben Gurion on occasion from time to time to give him report of what we would find out.
What kind of a person was he?
Nobody had any problem with Ben Gurion. Most of the problem was with his wife. Because she would call maybe 5 or 6 times.
Just a minute.
Did he get his cup of tea in the afternoon? Is he having lunch? I mean, she was a real pain. But, but he was true democratic, not religious. I don't think Ben Gurion ever went to synagogue, other than going to American synagogue for fundraising. I never saw him with a kippah. He was primarily engrossed in Greek philosophy.
What was his talent, his genius, his?
His genius was to be able to look at people straight in the eye and tell them exactly what he was feeling. He was honest. He was no talent. He recognized talent, and he let people do what they were best doing. The same thing with his relationship with Shimon Peres was all the way from Poland. Poland was the head of the young labor movement in Poland, Zionist labor movement in Poland. So they knew each other from there, and they had a trust. But in my opinion, Shimon Peres was not a very bright guy. That compared to Ben-Gurion. His vision was more idealistic, more he believed of things that really were more childish. His vision of world peace and ability to convince the Arab world that the Jews have every right to live in Palestine and Eretz Israel and to build peace with them was unrealistic. At one time, I really faced him and I said, Shimon, we always first name. He didn't know my first name. He always called me Mizrahi. So Ben-Gurion also called him Mizrahi. Okay. Because I was a novelty. There are like many Mizrahim in that position. Everybody was Ashkenazi. Anyway, you never learned the mentality of the Arab world. You never learned. I mean, you have lived here all these years, and you lived in your own cocoon. You have never really tried to have discussions with Arab leaders who feel differently than what you do. Listen to them, see where they are telling the truth and where they are backing up. And in my opinion, he made terrible mistake. He negotiated the agreement.
Oslo
agreement. Mm-hmm. He should have insisted that Arafat would sign the peace agreement with Israel. Everything was agreed. Everything was agreed. The land was agreed. What swaps would be, everything was agreed. But from what I understand, Arafat said, if I agree, well, somebody will shoot me or kill me. He said, that's part of being a leader. If you're not willing to take that responsibility, don't be a leader. But you have to do what is right for your people. But the fact is, he really never wanted to see Israel independent state. But in his mind, in Shimon Peres' mind, he believed it. He believed that he can really make peace. He can't. He was committed to destruction of the state of Israel. Period.
Did Ben-Gurion have an ego?
He had an ego, but it was controlled. It was controlled. He had a temper, and sometimes he would get angry, and would yell and said, what you are suggesting is detrimental. You didn't really think about it enough. Why don't you think about it more? And then we can discuss it for.
Ask him what he thought of it. What did Ben-Gurion think what did he say when you told him you want to go to America?
How long, first of all, before that, how long did you work in his office? And then what did he say when you wanted to tell him you're going to America?
Okay.
How long did you work for him?
For a year.
A year. Yeah. And what did he say when you told him you're going to America?
Well, I'm talking to America. He said, well, are you going to America? I said, I'm going to study. He said, we have a Hebrew University. Why don't you go to Hebrew University? He said, first of all, I can afford it. He said, well, are you worried about it? You tell me, I can fix it for you. I said, well, I didn't know. You're the prime minister. I mean, I will ask you to help me to do that. I mean, what am I? He said, but you should have done that. He said, okay, you're going to America. What are you going to do there? said, I'm going to, before that I have to tell you that I found out that the Israel Hoods had a course, a year course, to train diplomats. Mm-hmm. And I really wanted to enroll in that course. And I knew the guy who actually was teaching it, Bernstein. Bernstein was the Consul General of Holland in Palestine. And I knew him personally. But I had no background. I was only a high school graduate. Those people all were either had, the minimum they had a bachelor's degree. Many of them had a master's degree. And some of them were even doctor's degree. They knew multiple languages, read, writing. They were much more capable to do it. There was really, in my, a fantasy for me to be able to enroll in that particular course. So when Ben-Gurion said to me, he said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to go to America, I'm going to study diplomacy, and I'm going to come back, and I hope to join the Foreign Secretary. I really want to represent Israel in the world. I said, but you promise to come back? I said, of course, that's the only reason I'm going is to learn, because I can learn here, I can come back. But it so happened that I got a scholarship to go to America to study.
What school?
School. It's
Which
a
school?
small college in Indiana.
Called?
Called Manchester College.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the story. I'll tell you how I got to America. When I was working in the Prime Minister's office, we always had an hour for lunch. I didn't want to have lunch. I just loved to walk in Yerushalayim. And the atmosphere in Yerushalayim was so good for me. So one day I was walking, and I see a guy coming with uniform, coming the opposite. He stopped me, and he showed me an address. He said, how do I get to this place? He said, I'll take you. He said, no, tell me how to get. He said, no, it's difficult, left, right. I was speaking English. So my English was really just pidgin English. So I said, I'll show you. I said, I'm just walking, I'm not walking. He said, okay, thank you. So we're walking. I say, you army? He said, no, I'm pilot. I said, what is pilot? Pilot is airplane. You drive an airplane? He said, yeah, we call it pilot. Okay. You where from? He said, I'm America. Oh, America, that's far. He said, oh, it's very far. I said, how much time in an airplane? He said, 24 hours. 24 hours to come from America to Israel? I said, yeah, but we have to stop many places. We stop from America, we stop in Canada, we stop in Ireland, we stop in Paris, we stop in Roma, and we stop in Athens, and then we come to Tel Aviv. You speak all this language? He said, no, everything English. Everything English? Not Esperanto? He said, no, everything English. I said, oh my God, English is really the international language, not Esperanto. So I better learn English. So the next day, I immediately got the Jerusalem Post and start reading the Jerusalem Post every day and outlining words that I can understand. I immediately went got a Hebrew English, which I still have with me, Todalael, and I will underline and learn English that way. So one day I look and there is an announcement. Manchester College, Indiana, is offering scholarship to one of the students from the Middle East, anybody interested should contact their local American consulate. So what can I lose? I went to the American consulate in Shorashim and showed them the bill. They said, yeah, we have an application. They gave an application. I filled my application and forgot about it. About 6 weeks or 2 months later, I got a letter. I won scholarship for 4 years to study in America. But it's only covered the tuition. I have to work for food and clothing and books. So I told my father was very unhappy about it, but he realized that I really needed to study, and I didn't have that kind of an opportunity in Israel, and if the opportunity in America, he said, get my blessing. My mother had a little bit more difficult for that, but my brothers were very happy for me, particularly since I got a scholarship, which is a lot of money at the time. So I went to tell my boss and said, well, I think Ben-Gurion has to find out about it. So he told him, and then Ben-Gurion called me and said, why didn't you tell me? I will have arranged for you to be at the Hebrew University. I said, first of all, it's pretentious of me to ask the Prime Minister to help me. But also, I can pay for it. He says, I got a scholarship. So he said, but you promised to come back. I said, that was my idea, is to go to America to study, and for the first year, I studied international relations. And then it occurred to me, I really am not suited for that job.
Why?
Why? I'm an honest person. If Israel is doing something that I think is wrong, how can I protect it? My job is to protect Israel. But if, in my opinion, Israel is not doing the right thing, how can I protect them? I have to compromise my own values. I couldn't do that. And then it occurred to me, I should be a physician. Because I remember that when my mother had an attack, I was the one to go and get the doctor to come to the house. I couldn't take her. So I go to there. He was an old guy, a German physician, lived in Rehavia. I walk to Rehavia, and I carry his bag for him because he was an old guy. And magic. He just examined my mother and gave her an injection, and in 2 minutes, she was breathing normally. I said, my God, this is really fantastic. I mean, this is something worthwhile to pursue. So I changed from international relations to pre-med, and I got a scholarship to go to medical school too, so thank God.
Where?
Baruch Hashem, in America.
Where?
Where?
Medical school.
Oh, what school?
Yeah.
Albert Einstein College of Medicine, which is part of
Why
Yeshiva
right.
University. I got a scholarship.
First graduating class.
Oh, wow, the first graduating class of Einstein, wow.
First class.
Did you ever meet Menachem Begin? Did you ever meet
Menachem
Menachem
Begin?
Begin?
No, I never met Begin.
Did you ever meet
That's
Golda?
the only time I saw him
Was on the
was
ballot.
for that time.
Did you ever meet Golda Meir?
No. Oh, Golda Meir?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Tell
Golda
me.
Meir used to come to the Prime Minister's
Whoa.
office.
Sorry? Sorry, what? Okay, fine, start again.
Yeah, Golda Meir, when I went to America, she said she made a joke of it to tell me how I have to watch out for all the young women.
American women.
Okay.
I said, you can understand the kind of freedom that American young women have. So keep careful, be careful.
She told you this in 1950, 51?
51.
Whew.
She said, you don't understand the kind of freedom that women in America have. I didn't.
Okay. Is there anyone else from the signers of the Declaration of Independence that you met? Verhaftig,
Ben Gurion,
Golda.
Shimon Peres, Levy Eshkol, Moshe Sheret. I don't remember anything.
When you look back now, 75 years later, at what you experienced at the birth of the State of Israel, how do you absorb the whole thing?
People ask me, what is the happiest day in your life? I said, other than the fact that I married the woman that I wanted to marry, I lived that apart. I said, May 16, 1948 is the greatest day of my life. So what happened May 16, 1948? I got my commission as an officer in the Free Army of the Free State of Israel. And when people ask me what is your birth date, I said May 16, 1948. They look at me like I'm crazy. I said, yeah, it's a new life. It's a new life. I mean, how many people can actually say that? After 2,000 years wearing a uniform of an army, a Jewish army, a free state, it buckles your mind. Buckle your mind. It was so important that you can't really comprehend it. But at the same time, we are so busy to try to survive. I didn't really have too much time to contemplate about that. But I did. That same question was asked to me by Martin Buber.
How do we get to Martin Buber? Well, go ahead. I'm just blown away. Go ahead. What's Martin Buber's story?
Martin, when I found out what happened in the Holocaust, I was devastated and angry at God. I said, God, you are defender of the state of Israel, defender of the Israeli people. Where were you? How did you allow that to happen? I stopped wearing tefillin. I never put the kippah on or head cover. I absolutely forgot. I would not eat non-kosher food, but that's the only thing I wouldn't do. I would never go back to synagogue. I never go back to do anything that was ritual. And I was angry. And I didn't know how to deal with it. How can you be angry with God? I mean, Talmud Torah, how can you be angry at Torah? So I went to, right across the street from me was Yeshivat Harav Kook. It's not where it is today.
No, that one downtown, right.
So I went there and I consulted. This guy said to me, why are you without, where is your kippah? Where is your, not kippah, where is your hat? I never wear kippah. It was beret. I told him, I have a problem and I need help. And he said, what help? What are you, what's your problem? I said, I'm very angry at God. So Rabbi, I said, angry at God? I said, yes. I said, I'm angry at God. He allowed the Holocaust to take place. He said, God didn't allow that. Well, people allowed that. I said, that's true. That's true. But he took us out of Egypt. Biad Hazekah was so in it. He was able to do that. Why can't he do that tomorrow? He destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Why couldn't he destroy Nazis? He said, one thing you have to know, you can't put yourself in the place of God. I said, I know that. I know that. I'm not putting myself in God. I'm just angry. I said, and that's why I come to you to give me some idea. He didn't. He didn't. Whatever he gave me was really not. And then I'm talking to my friends, and friends say, I tell him, you know, I really go to rabbis, and they give me words that are really advised. It's rationalization. It's not really. So he said, I would like you to meet a professor from Hebrew University. Hebrew University has a professor by the name of Martin Buber, and I will arrange for you to be able to go to the. I can let you in, but you have to talk to him. That's up to you. I said, how come you? He said, my father is friendly with the dean of the Hebrew University, and he will give you a letter allowing you to go and listen to any subject that you want. I'm still in the army. So I was in the Ma'avira, but I came and I have a couple of days. So I said, okay, I will go. It was the beginning of the semester, right after Sukkot. And I go into the Hebrew University. The Hebrew University was spread all over Yerushalayim. Santa Teresa, I don't know if you know where Santa Teresa is. That's where he was teaching. So I go there, and I said, where is the office? Where is the class for Professor Ruber? And she tells me where to go. So I go, and I see this man sitting. The student hasn't been there. Sitting there with a lot of books on in front of him. Long beard, long hair. I said, oh, another rabbi is going to give me the same stuff, but he didn't have an kippah. I said, well, he's not a rabbi. A rabbi? He was not Reform. I didn't even know Reform exists. I said, okay. So I went, I introduced myself. I'm still in uniform. And he said, I said, my name is Avraham Mizrahi, and I got permission to come and sit at your class. He said, I hope that after the class, you and I can have a few moments to talk. I need your advice. He said, not only that, I have my own. I want to ask you some questions too. I said, he said, I'd be happy to spend time with you. I have no other responsibilities other than that. I said, okay. So then maybe 18 or 20 students came, and he was talking way over my head. I didn't understand what he was talking about. I had no idea. I said, we're going to talk about how we approach other people, how we talk to other people, how we love people, how we talk to our parents, how we talk to our children, how we talk to our wives, how do we talk to our enemies, and eventually how we talk to God. And he said, for a while, this is what we're going to do. We're also going to study other philosophers of what they have to say. And after that, the class said, now I'm finished. We will meet again in 2 days, the same place, the same class, and it gave them assignment to read. Then everybody left. I stayed. I said, why don't you come up to me to my office and we can talk in the office? So I said, can I help you with the books? He said, yeah, that would help. So he gave me some books. I said, I want to ask, what is the question that you wanted to ask me? I said, I am angry with God and I don't know how to deal with it. He said, okay. But can I ask you first about your background? And I said, sure. So he asked me the same stuff. I told him about my parents. He was more interested about the dynamics of my family, how they relate to each other, how respectful I was to my parents, what my parents respect to me, respect my father to mother, mother to father. He was interested in that dynamic. And then he said to me, you know, there are two things that you have to, there are two ways in which you can really deal with your anger. He said, one way is really to study Hasidism. He said, Hasidism found a way in which they can really communicate with God in a way that I have not seen possible by any other people in the world. He really was very impressed with the ability of the Hasidim to find joy and happiness with everything that they did, with everything that they looked, with everything that they did. So I said, Rabbi, Professor, I said, call him Rabbi. He said, I'm not Rabbi. He said, Professor, excuse me, Professor. I appreciate everything that God created, and I'm happy to see. I love to see the view of His creation, and the tree, and human being, the complexity of human being. It's beyond conception how beautiful it is. But I can't understand how He allowed this terrible thing happen to what we call Magen David. Magen David is Magen David, Eretz Israel, Am Israel. He said, the Hasidim found a way to do that. They found a way in which they can compromise and find a way to continue to yourself. The other thing that you can do is remember one thing. When you approach God, know that you are created in the image of God. Not God created it in your image. You are created in the image of God. If you are angry at God, you are also angry at yourself. I said, yes, it's true. I'm angry at myself because I'm angry. So it's a vicious cycle. I said, but if you put your mind, truly believe that you are a creation of God in His own image, then you will find your way to make peace with your God. And it helped me a great deal.
He wasn't famous yet.
Huh?
He was? No, he wasn't famous yet.
He was.
Martin Buber was not famous yet. He was just a professor at Hebrew U. He wasn't.
Oh, he was very famous.
He was already?
He was much famous in outside Israel. In Israel. His book I and Thou
Yes.
has been published all over the world.
But at the time, I'm saying that was
At
published.
the time,
Okay, fine.
I'm
fine.
talking about 1951.
Good. Okay, fine.
He came to Eretz Yisrael 1946.
Yeah. When you look back on your life, is there anything you would have done differently?
Yes,
What?
a lot of things. but
Me
when
too.
when I went to medical school, my objective was to become a neurosurgeon. But I quickly realized that I can't do that. I don't have the dexterity in my hand, right and left hand, and eye movement to be able to be that kind of. In addition to it, it takes 7 years training to be a neurosurgeon, and I just couldn't do it. I was married already, so I couldn't do it. So I compromised, said I will be a psychiatrist. And I liked the idea of being a psychiatrist. I really wanted to be. But unfortunately, my wife had inherited a mental illness, which is depression. And I said, it's not a good thing for me to be a psychiatrist and have a wife who has mental. My wife, Alei Shalom, was one of the brightest people I ever met in my life. And the things I absolutely adore the most about her is how honest she was. She was who she was. She never pretended to be for somebody else. But she's so brilliant. I don't know if you know. She graduated from the Bronx High School of Science. She was only 14 years old.
And Bronx Science in those days was quite a school.
At 14.
At 14.
14.
Yeah.
She started college at 15 in Brooklyn. A 15-year-old kid going for the Bronx. She was brilliant. She was really brilliant. When we were married 60 years, we had a small celebration. Just my wife and I and another friend, a woman friend. And the woman friend said, she has just lost her husband. He said, if there is a life after, when I come back, I want to be married to the same person. I want to have the same children, the same. The only thing I would want different was to have Susie's brain. Susie's my wife. I said, oh, you can't have her brain. First of all, I have first call.
Hey, what?
I have a first call. I said, if anybody has a right to a brain, it's me. But I also, if I come back, I want to be married to the same woman, and so you can have her brain. And I want to have the same children, the same parents. So it's a non-deal.
So we decided to study pediatrics.
She went to pediatrics.
So you went
So-
from psychiatry.
So I felt that going to psychiatry will really disturb my marriage, because I won't be able to separate
Yes.
my
Professional from personal.
profession
Yeah.
from my marriage.
Yes.
And my marriage was more important to me. So I changed that to, I was able to relate to children very easily, and they relate to me, so I became a pediatrician.
You walk through the country of Israel, you go any place. You look around and you say, I helped make this. Any place you are, I helped make this. That's a powerful feeling.
I never feel that way. I feel that my contribution to the creation of the state of Israel was a tiny one, but so are thousands and thousands and thousands of other people who made that small, tiny contribution, and put all this tiny little contribution, create the possibility of us having them. In all honesty, I think that one of the greatest contribution to the creation of the state of Israel was the kibbutzim. You can't create the state of Israel by studying the yeshiva. It's wonderful to be able to study the Talmud and Rambam and Avraham and everybody else. It's a wonderful thing. But to create a state, you have to be on the land, you have to live in the land, you have to create in the land, and you have to fight for it. And the leadership of the Yishuv really came from the kibbutzim. And I have to give him that credit. And it's true. It doesn't mean that my contribution is meaningless. It's not. But it's tiny compared to the kind of sacrifices that these people had to make. And how much effort they put into the creation of the state of Israel. And me, I was an individual, but they are a community. A community contributing, it's very different than one individual community. And that's, but I finally was able to, I have a lot of nieces, and a couple of months ago, I was invited to one of my nieces who lives in Mahane Yehuda, and I didn't recognize the place.
I'll bet.
I recognized only my synagogue. My synagogue doesn't look the same as it was, but it's in the same place. It's exactly the same place. The streets were paved. It's no longer stone, that you don't have to worry about it, but it still is. It's narrow, and the building are the same building, and I know exactly where my home was and where my brother lived, and I can recognize. But other than that, I didn't know anything. I couldn't. I lost. Jehovah Agrippas. I couldn't believe it. It's so different. So different.
Yes. When you were a child, they were mostly horses and wagons.
Walk.
No, besides walking. There was no cars. It was mostly horses and wagons, right?
I'm sorry.
When you were a child,
yeah.
On the streets of Jerusalem were mostly horses and wagons, not cars.
No, Biafra cars.
Yes.
But they were not the horses. They were not that primitive.
Okay, fine.
They're very primitive,
yes.
But not that primitive.
Yes, okay, fine.
But I never got on a bus or on a car until I was a teenager. I never saw a telephone. I didn't know. When somebody told me, you can write music. How can you write music?
Yes.
How can you write music? To me, it's strange. I mean, if you are not exposed to that as a child, and the first time I saw the telephone was in the pharmacy. How can people talk from America to Israel on the telephone, or Tel Aviv and Yerushalayim?
Last question. I may have asked him, how would you like to be remembered in history?
How much I want to be remembered in history? Through my children. I don't deserve to be given any kind of kibud of any kind. I am very proud, but I was born here by accident. I mean, I didn't do anything. I was born here. My brother should get the credit, not me. I didn't do anything about being born in Israel. I was born at a time where the Jewish people determined that we are going to have our own country. I mean, there were other times in our history where people were kind of Shabbatai Tzvi, but they didn't do it. But by accident of nature, I was born here. I don't deserve to be put on some kind of wall, Avraham Mizrahi. I didn't do anything unintentional. I was born in Europe and said, I must come to Israel and live in Israel. I appreciate those people a lot more than me, who was born and raised here.
But you were a
I had no choice.
Yes, but you were a commander in the War of Independence.
Yeah, me, I'm very proud of it. That's why I say, where were you born? I was born May 16, 1948. That's when I got my commission as an officer in the Israeli army after 2,000 years. I mean, it still boggles my mind, even today, all after these years. Is it real? Is it real? Of course it's real. It's all real. My grandson was in the army, in the Tzanchanim, and he was an officer. My granddaughter was a siren in Israeli Air Force. I mean, my little Liat was in search and rescue. And I mean, for me, coming from the ghetto of Machne Yehuda, is boggling. To try to assimilate that is, even today, all these years, it's difficult to see the reality of it. And I love just sitting outside and looking at the distance. And my daughter asked me, what do you see when you're there? I see Roman armies going through from here to Yotfat. I see Jewish armies 2,000 years fighting the Roman army. That's what I see. I am so fortunate that I lived at a time where the Jewish people were determined to become an independent and own state. And it happened. Whether it's God's plan for us to do that, I'll give God credit. But I did also know that a lot of people sacrificed tremendously. Draining the Hula, how many people died in malaria to drain the Hula? These are the people that we have to, not me. These are the people who really contributed to the state of Israel. My contribution, it's not minimized. I'm not trying to minimize it, but it's a pride that I share with my family, but I don't generally share it with anybody else. They appreciate it, and I want them to know that I appreciate it. And this video is going to go to every one of my grandchildren because they asked for it. They want it.
I thank you for sharing with us.
My pleasure.
Anything I missed?
Just one other fact
Yes.
that I know that is so, actually two things. Your Arabic name when you were undercover.
Oh, excellent.
Your Arabic name. Ask any of my kids, they'll tell you what it is.
Okay.
That is one thing, and the other thing is my Safta's family. What family lineage she came from? Your mother's.
Who came from Iraq?
Okay.
I'm
sorry,
Iraq.
Those two things are fascinating.
My mother's family traces her
Lineage.
background to Spain, Rabbeinu Bachya ben Asher. Rabbeinu Bachya ben Asher actually replaced the Rambam as chief of Cordova when Rambam came to live in Palestine. And there were two things that I remember my parents talking about me. One is I know that my mother wanted to name me Bachya because in her family, every male in every generation was, one of them at least was Bachya, honoring Rab Bachya ben Asher. My father said, I can't name my son God is crying. I said, that's not proper. So they didn't know which one to. So in my tradition, Avraham Avinu is, in Spanish, we call him Luz de Israel, the light of Israel. So they both agree that my name would be Abraham. I'm not named after anybody in the family, although my mother wanted me to him. The other thing that they had a little bit of, my mother wanted me to be a rabbi. My father said, no, you should be a teacher. Why? Teacher, he can teach anywhere in the world. But a rabbi, he can only teach in the Jewish community. But we don't know what the future is, so it's better to be a teacher because you have more opportunities. Nobody asked me what I wanted to do.
But you found it, right? Okay.
So,
What was your name? What was your underground name?
now, I translated my Hebrew name to Arabic. Ibrahim ibn Sulaiman al-Khalili. Avraham ben Shlomo Hebron. Since I was born in Hebron, Hebron in Arabic is Khalil, so Avraham ben Ibrahim ibn Sulaiman, Sulaiman is Shlomo al-Khalili. And that what gives me the pleasure to see my granddaughter
Research your career.
research my
Life.
and writing it about it, and with great pride and great satisfaction, and did such a wonderful job that it had to go all the way to the Minister of Chinuch to look at it. And he commended her for the kind of research she did. I don't need my name on walls. We have plenty of it on Hadassah, because my wife was very big macher in Hadassah. That's one of the things that she did extremely well, to the point where she could easily have been the national president, but she chooses not to do it because it would take too much time from her family. But our names are on many walls in Hadassah. And
Maybe you want to ask him what it feels like to be back after 70-something years?
And that's where-
Leave it at that. Leave it at that.
Be back where? He's been here. What do you mean?
He's been here for a year and a half. After 70 years being in America, he's been...
Oh, I didn't realize that.
So
Did
he
you?
came as
Oh,
the Chazer and she is the
Hevanti. I didn't realize you were in America so long. I didn't ask that question, but you were in America for a long time.
Oh,
You were in America for a long time.
70 years.
70 years.
70 years.
How's it
That's
feel?
why, that's why I speak in English.
What languages do you speak? I was going to ask that.
And
Hebrew, English, Arabic. What else?
Arabic.
Ladino.
I know a few words.
Ladino.
I have a few words, but not my languages.
How's it feel to come back?
People ask me why can you. I give some talks in our synagogue here.
Yes.
I always give it in English because everybody understands English. Why don't you? Because the Hebrew language advanced in the 70 years.
Yes.
I didn't advance at the same time like the Hebrew language.
Yes.
Sometimes I said, what does it mean? I don't understand. Some of the words are really taken from the English language. It's really funny.
Yes.
But now they don't even, there's a full word, like,
They have Roshei Tavot for things, yeah.
I said, what does it mean? I don't understand it. So I'm ashamed that I'm unable to give you this interview with Hebrew, but at the same time, it's a credit to the state of Israel and to the Hebrew language. Because the fact that I didn't keep up with it, it shows how much more progress was made.
Right, but you did keep your promise to Ben Gurion.
Yes. Well, I always wanted to come back.
Yes.
But I disagreed with the halacha that if the husband wants to move to Israel and the wife doesn't, it's better to divorce her and move. I couldn't accept that at all. But we came to Israel as a family many times, and I always, before I even married, I told my wife, I said, I want you to know, when I finish my training in medicine, I'm going back to Israel. And you agreed that you would come with me to Israel? We said yes. But her family circumstances were such that she couldn't leave her parents. And I sympathize with it. Actually, I admire her, that she cares enough about her parents to convince me that it's not the right thing for us to leave.
Israel was the center of our family.
Yes. Where did you live in the States for 7 years?
And most of the time I lived in New York because that's where my medical school was.
Right. Okay, all right. So you want to take a couple of reverse shots of me? So that when they cut it, they'll have me looking at him. Just to know, from just over his shoulder, meaning,
אוקיי.
אפילו, אני יכול לשאול שאלות, אבל...
Is there anything else that you want to share, or you think you had enough?
Is there anything that
Is there anything else that you want to
I
share
don't have to
that
ask
you
questions, but
didn't
to take a
say?
picture, because there are a lot of cuts
don't
where
think so.
if someone's cutting it. You need, you know what I'm saying? Just...
Shouldn't you be closer?
No, he's got it.
He likes to,
This is my original תעודת זהות.
This is my father's family. That's my father.
Oh, excellent. Who's your father?
Your baby?
Oh, my God.
Did you take it?
Tremendous
I want to
picture.
see who. I want to see who
My
signed it
Saba.
for me.
Oh, my God.
And that's my Saba and Savta from their roof overlooking Rehov Yafo. And I remember this apartment.
Yeah, לא צריך לקרוא.
Yeah, amazing. I don't
And
understand. How is it possible that no one stories been written about it? How is it possible?
who signed it?
But look who signed it for me.
Oh, Ben Gurion. No, who's?
Yep.
Yep.
And who else? Moshe Shaltok. Shaltok.
Shaltok.
Before he changed his name. Okay.
Amazing. But you got his family. If you want to take a picture of his, just.
I don't know what you want to, that's his original family. He's the baby. That's him.
My father with the Turkish army.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
זה סבא שלי, האמצעי.
תן לי רגע את המיקרופון, איפה המיקרופון שעליך? אוקיי, בסדר.
כאן זה סבא וסבתא שלי, בבית,
כן.
אני זוכרת את
שלום.
ההצעה הזאתי.
Oh. Yeah. Tremendous.
שירות מודיעין.
I mean, these things belong in a museum. I mean, I'm glad they're not in a museum, they're in my house.
Yes.
But we should probably
Yes.
make some kind of...
צילמתי.
At
Kind
some
of.
point.
Okay.
Here, give me the things you finished with.
This is the one I want to show you, because there is a story involved with that. What? What's his name? He told me his name. He said, "Why, are you kidding me? Of course I remember him."
Sheesh.
And then he brings in his father. He said, "That's my father." So, "Well, where did you get this picture?" I said, "I took it. I was the mfaked at Zmachor." So said, "Can I have it?" "Of course I can have it." So,
So my son sends him the picture.
it was unbelievable. I don't know what else you want to do.
No?
Where's the picture with you with the Davidka?
I don't know.
These would be cutaways. And I realize now, you didn't need me because these are cutaways when he's talking, just showing that.
So grateful that you're doing this.
It'll be online, it'll be on YouTube eventually. Yeah.
So we got Katamon.
Has he not been interviewed by no?
I don't know.
Oh, because he just came in.
Oh. And this is my
Just unbelievable.
letter I got after Shechrur Me'atzava.
Don't lick it.
Oh, God.
יש.
Got it?
Look at this.
Wow. That's fantastic that you even have these pictures. I mean, who had cameras and...
Where was this?
This is Katamon.
Katamon.
He took a picture of it. This is my Shechrur.
When my cousins, his nieces see all these pictures, they just, this one is really important one. This was Mefaked Mechuz Yerushalayim.
Mefaked Yerushalayim. And his commander and me. Okay, we'll speak.
What, all of this goes in here?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
תעודת מסע.
Huh.
Let's see what it's inside.
Show him.
What does it say inside? What does it say inside?
That's very
Ted.
great. That's great.
Oh, is that the one that says where you're not allowed to go?
Yeah.
With the seal?
Yeah.